I'm Matt Lownes here at LTV, and this is Ask the Supervisor with Town Supervisor Peter Van Scoyoc. Today is Monday, December 6th. How you doing, Peter?
Doing well. Thank you, Matt. How are you?
I'm good. We're trying a different setup here, and that's why I got headphones on, as you can tell. Not just doing it for fun. Peter, we got some good stuff today, and we also have, after this, we'll be Ask the Mayor with Village Mayor Jerry Larson. So for those at home, you can stay tuned for the whole hour. Peter, I'd love to start off today with your takeaway from the Affordable Housing Forum hosted by the East Hampton High School last week that you attended.
Yeah, that was a really great forum. The East Hampton School Board is to be commended, as Lee Silverman from Habitat for Humanity said at the meeting. Very unusual that you have a school board lobbying for affordable housing. The response of school boards on Long Island have often been concerned about adding more children to the district and the financial impacts of that. So it's refreshing to see, but I think it's emblematic of the severity of the crisis when school districts are having trouble hiring and retaining staff, as our municipal government is also having that same issue, and many businesses. We had Assemblyman Fred Thiel kicked off the discussion with giving an update on the Community Housing Fund transfer tax, the 0.5% tax that was recently approved by the state legislature, signed into law by the governor, that would give the 5 East End towns the ability to set up a community housing plan and levy a 0.5% tax. Would operate much in the same way that the Community Preservation Fund has operated over the last 20 years. That's also a transfer tax. This 0.5% would go into a fund and would be administered by each individual town based on their specific plan. So it will be incumbent upon us to complete a plan. We have actually a housing plan in place now. We probably will amend it somewhat, and the local voters will have to vote by referendum in 2022, in November 2022, in order to approve that. Now, the CPF and water quality amendments passed by wide margins. We believe that this issue has become such a critical part of maintaining our town that residents, I think, will support it. And it's up to us to publicize the different elements of that plan and help the public understand how it will work.
Sounds like it was a very exciting night, at least as far as the potential of it all goes. And I heard it was a fantastic turnout as well. It seems as though all sides felt that it was a good outcome, a good meeting, and some constructive ideas were made out of it.
Yeah, very important topic. And I think, a number of the participants, I mentioned Habitat for Humanity, but there's also a local organization called YIMBY, which the acronym stands for Yes in My Backyard. This is an organization that was founded to help lobby for and support applications for housing here on the East End, particularly the South Fork. So we heard from some of their members. We heard from one of the members on the hospital board, who also was expressing, the difficulty the hospital's having in even hiring and attracting, retaining doctors and nurses and other skilled positions, radiologists, from that all the way to custodians. So this is not limited just to school districts or the municipality. It really is all across the entire economy. And it's something that we have a number of tools that we can use to deal with it, but having this dialogue that's bringing in all these various groups to focus on the problem and try to solve it, and at least alleviate, some of that pressure is really important. So I think everybody felt good about that. opening up those communication lines to see how we can work together to leverage our positions and mitigate this problem.
Yeah, and I mean, since we started as me taking over for Mike Clark on this show, it seems as though affordable housing has been the talking point. No matter what, week in and week out, there's something out there, and it seems to be the most dire need out here, especially long term. I've talked to the YIMBY group. I've talked to Tom Rule over at the town. It's very interesting. It's a much needed thing, especially long term, to have to have what we have out here as far as volunteer EMS, volunteer firemen. It's going to be more and more difficult to have volunteer EMS services if people can't live out here. So there's a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of different areas and a lot of different concern from many different people, not just one group of people.
I mean, we have restaurants now that aren't open, 7 days a week or even 6 days a week. They might be 4 or 5 days a week or even just, 4 days because they can't staff. And, without staff, businesses can't operate full capacity, and some may find it impossible to continue. And I think, that's really important that we try to address this problem.
Yeah, no, it is quite something. I mean, in the summer, just as well as I do, there's plenty of companies out here and different establishments that hire across the water from Ireland, and different people will come and work just in the summer. And even then, there was still this past summer a multitude of hiring crises throughout every industry out here. It wasn't just one industry; it was every single industry across the board, and up to lifeguards. So it's definitely important, and we will definitely keep an eye on that in this show and here at LTV. Moving on, the town of East Hampton, I'm reading directly from your press release, has appointed Jerry Samuelson as the town planning director. And I'm not going to lie, I read Samuelson's resume, so to speak. It is quite impressive. He was the president and the executive director of the Concerned Citizens of Montauk from 2012 to 2017. He lived and worked on Shelter Island as the director of the Mashamik Preserve for Nature Conservancy. And he had previously worked as a senior environmental advocate at the group of East End. Tell me about the decision to hire Jerry Samuelson as the town planning director, as effective as January 3rd, 2022.
So just as a matter of background, our long-term planning director, Marguerite Wolfson, retired a couple of years ago, and Joanne Powell, who was the senior planner assistant director, took over that position, and she just retired in June. So we were looking for a permanent person to fill that position. We've undergone an extensive search, and fortunate for the town, we did come across Jeremy Samuelson, who most of us in town government have known for many, many years. He actually did a stint with the planning department, maybe way back in 2003, in between that group for the East End job and what he was previously working on. But, we are very excited to have Jeremy on board, and we think that he will bring a lot of energy and management skills to running the planning department, which is arguably one of the most important departments we have in town in terms of helping us determine our future and to ensure that the town we all love and want to stay in functions as it should. We have a number of things that the planning department is responsible for, managing site plan review, subdivision approvals, although there are very few subdivisions coming in these days with no large plots of land really left to develop in that way. But, those types of applications that get reviewed by the planning board are reviewed by planning staff who assists. We issue site plan approvals that way. But there's also the long-range planning component, and we have a number of very important efforts underway, whether it's energy sustainability, dealing with sea level rise, coastal erosion, affordable housing we talked about earlier. There's so many, really pressing issues that we need long-range plans for. We've undertaken a number of studies, the Hamlet studies, for instance, and looking at the various business districts in each hamlet to plot out their future in conjunction with, the community, so that the different hamlets evolve in the way that the community would like. We're at the implementation stages of those plans, the coastal assessment and resiliency planning. We're at the implementation stage of that. We're looking at community wastewater treatment for downtown Montauk. So there are just all sorts of longer range efforts that we've undertaken. And, we think that it's really important to have somebody who's extremely good at communication, management skills. We think that Jeremy will be a really great fit for the town.
Yeah. And it sounds exciting that it's a brand new, younger person. From my perspective, it seems a little bit exciting to see someone with such a vast experience, especially out on the South Fork and in our county. He's done so much work. He's done work on the Shelter Island Town Deer and Tick Committee. I mean, it sounds like he truly cares about this area out here. So it's nice to see. Moving on, let's talk about the review of the EAF for the sale of 54 Industrial Road, right down the road here.
Yeah, that's in your neighborhood, LTV land. So Industrial Road had a number of long-term leases associated with it, and some of those leases early on gave the lessee the ability to purchase at the end of the lease period. And so this particular property qualifies in that category. And so tomorrow we'll be reviewing the environmental assessment forms, which is a required step of the State Environmental Quality Review Act when we take actions of this nature. And we do expect that there will be a resolution to approve the sale going forward. Again, this is an industrial area. It's a developed property. We don't believe there will be any environmental impacts as a result to it, but we will go through the process of doing that publicly at tomorrow's work session. So we'll do that ahead of scheduling a public hearing for the sale.
Okay, sounds great. Now, there was a weird story in the East Hampton Star. Apparently, there has been PSE&G, the local energy provider. There's been scam calls to people's homes, sometimes even requesting banking info. Does the town have any statement on this as to the PSE&G scam call situation that's been going on?
Well, I'll just say that it seems that this time of year, when you approach the holidays, the frequency of scams and the variety of scams that come up really increase. And I would encourage everyone to be extremely careful. First of all, you shouldn't be giving any kind of personal information out over the telephone. Any legitimate organization calling you would not be requesting that via the phone line. That's a warning signal for sure. Be very careful about text messages that you receive that have links from unknown sources, or somebody saying, "Hey, claim your gift card," whatever. Most of the time, these are scams or phishing schemes. So again, just be really vigilant.
For those of you at home who may not know what phishing is basically you'll get an email that looks completely normal. Maybe it'll be from your bank, or it'll be from your phone company, and it'll look normal, and it'll have a blue link, and if you click on the link, they'll then be able to access your computer. That's phishing. It looks like a normal email. It's not. Please feel free to Google phishing if you have any more
Spelled with a PH. Yeah, spelled with PH instead of F-I-S-N-G.
It's quite interesting, but we are not going to go over phishing here on Ask the Supervisor much longer than we just did. Moving on, there's been recent bigger fires requiring multiple towns. There was a fire this weekend in Bridgehampton at the Apple Wild Farm on Meadow Court, and there was a fire in Montauk on November 17th on Willow Drive, both of which required multiple fire departments from multiple towns. The one in Montauk being because there was no fire hydrants nearby and other towns needed to bring tankers full of water. Is this something the town is looking at to improve putting fire hydrants in areas where they may right now not be accessible for certain homes to put a fire out in a timely manner?
So we, have been pretty much a rural community that's becoming more and more suburban. And there are still many private roads and roads in urban renewal maps, areas that are not served by public water, and the subdivisions or the plots were laid out before the requirement of having fire cisterns or fire wells installed. So there are situations where there isn't an immediate fire hydrant nearby, and you've just described one of those recent instances. And it's pretty unusual, I'll say, to have that many fire departments called out. I think the last time that many departments were called out, and I could be wrong about this, but the last one I can remember was the cinema fire in Sag Harbor. And that wasn't for lack of fire hydrants, but just the size of the blaze required mutual aid from various departments. Having mutual aid from other departments is not that uncommon, but to have so many different departments called out for a fire really does not occur that often.
Yeah, I just found it interesting because there happened to be two within a roughly 3-week span. Obviously, I obviously applaud the volunteer firemen that showed up to both from all the different towns, from Sag Harbor, East Hampton, Springs, Amagansett, and Bridgehampton at both fires, and Montauk. It's just something that I didn't know if people were aware of it, that this is, like you said, a older town, and there's plenty of deep private roads that aren't going to have access to fire hydrants. I just found it a little interesting. Let's also.
So, I mean, one of the things we did do was we created another fire substation in Northwest, specifically for that reason, to cut response time for the fire department to those areas in Northwest, and that ultimately will end up reducing a number of homeowners' insurance policy premiums because the closeness to that substation. Most insurance companies have a pretty high premium if you're, more than 5 miles away from a fire department. So, we have taken that step. I do know that in the Amagansett Dunes area, the Suffolk County Water Authority has been improving the old Amagansett Water Company mains that they inherited when they took over that company. And, there were some issues with low pressure in some of those neighborhoods. So they have a plan underway to improve main pressure in areas like that. I think they've moved along quite well with in making those improvements. Mm-hmm. But again, we still have areas that are somewhat remote and rely on well water. And in some of those cases, there are not fire cisterns or wells close by.
May I ask actually one quick question as a follow-up? I apologize, guys, but I was wondering, with southern pine beetle, because it's just going into trees and just killing them from the inside, does that increase our chances of a brush fire potentially?
Yeah, I mean, brush fires, the potential of fuel to burn does increase that. We did have a fire in Pine Barren section. You may recall, I guess it was this past summer, early in the summer, over up behind the airport near Town Line Road. We had about 15 acres that burned in a brush fire out there. But, that could become a concern over time. We do live in a pretty humid environment, and once that material sits on the ground for very long, it starts to get, it is a softwood, so it tends to start rotting and decomposing fairly quickly. But if we got a really dry spell, I think in some areas that might be a concern.
All right. Thank you very much.
While we're on the topic of emergency medical services, out of curiosity, as a follow-up question, is our response times average across similar towns to our population, and as far as voluntary services go?
That's a good question. I don't have an answer, but I can say that in my experience, I don't know how it compares to other towns. The response times are extremely good here in East Hampton, and that's a credit to our emergency service and police departments, personnel who are often the first at the scene. And sometimes if it's a case of needing medical aid, that our police officers are actually there within a minute or two. And, we've recognized some of our officers for saving lives because of that quick response. So, that's a credit to our volunteers who managed to get to these where they're needed in a short period of time. And I mean, when you look at the number of calls that departments have and the amount of time that our volunteers put in, I think they're just not recognized enough for all they do for us. And but when you need them, then you truly appreciate them. And just read any number of the letters of thanks, situations where our volunteers, came through and really helped people out in their time of dire need.
Yeah, I've heard plenty of stories. As a lifeguard growing up, I had to do CPR every year, so learning CPR with all the volunteers, and I've learned from cops, I've learned from just about everyone throughout this town. They do really hard work. I've seen it firsthand at the beach when there's been incidents. The volunteers out here work really hard. They drop everything on a dime, whether they're working. They drop everything, go straight to the accident. They go straight to the firehouse if they need to. We have, for volunteer service and the amount of people we have here in the summer, I think we do a very good job out here. Peter,
we do. I would add though that if you have the time to please volunteer, they're always looking for additional members. And, as we talked about earlier, the housing crisis is putting more and more pressures on working people who do volunteer their time. So if you're in a situation where you can volunteer your time and expertise, whether it might just be as a driver or maybe, you could become a skilled EMT, that's a life skill. You can help out your local community. So check in with whatever local department is near you and see how you can help them out.
100%. I think anybody that has the time and can do it should definitely help out if they want to. Peter, is there any COVID-19 updates as far as in East Hampton town? I know that everybody seems to be talking about Omicron, but from my understanding, there's no Omicron on Long Island. So any updates from you about COVID-19?
I would be surprised, honestly, if there was no Omicron on Long Island. I think it's very likely that it's already spreading. It's a variant that's even more contagious than Delta variant. We saw how much more contagious that was than the original strain of the virus. I will say that the town, we've been very active in both providing testing access and vaccine access. We had another vaccine clinic here today at Town Hall in the meeting room. One of a series we've been doing lately, making sure that local folks have access to boosters or first shots. You have your choice. You can get Pfizer, Moderna, or Johnson & Johnson. We're providing those vaccines, again, either first dose or booster dose. We're doing it by appointment only. We'll have it seems every time we put out the notice about a clinic, it fills up within a day or two. We are scheduling 6 more clinics before now through the early part of the new year. So if you're still in need of a vaccine, whether it be a first dose, which we really encourage you, if you haven't gotten at least a first dose yet, you do so right away. The number of people who died due to COVID now are almost exclusively, like 98, 99% are those who are unvaccinated. And it doesn't matter what condition health-wise you are, you can think you're really healthy, and this virus can affect you as an extremely healthy person, athletic person, and it can take you down. So come out and get a vaccine, whether it's here or in some neighboring location. We really want to make sure everybody gets vaccinated and stays at a really high level of antibodies. So get your booster if you haven't yet, and just continue being careful if you're in public settings around a lot of people, close proximity. Wear the mask whenever you can. Just take precautions, remember to wash your hands, and keep doing the things that prevent spread of this disease. We have a ways to go yet, unfortunately.
Also, for what it's worth, you can get your flu shot. I know government and everyone's pushing a bunch of shots, but it's available. I got mine. I got my booster. I feel pretty good. Glad that we have the wonderful scientists in this country that have been able to get all these extra things for us. The vaccines, the boosters. Take advantage of it is my recommendation. The town is giving out vaccines. Peter, any last thoughts from you before we wrap things up here?
We're fully on into the holiday season, and I hope it's a peaceful, wonderful time for people to spend with friends and family. Just be careful and be safe out there, and do what you can to prevent the spread of this COVID-19, and try to enjoy as much as you can. Shop local where you can. We need to support our local businesses and restaurants, and just looking forward to time with friends and family.
Awesome. Peter, thank you so much. I'll see you again next Monday. This was Ask the Supervisor. I'm Matt Lownes. That's Peter Van Scoyoc, the town supervisor. Coming up next is Ask the Mayor with East Hampton Village Mayor Jerry Larson.
Thanks, Matt. Take care. Stay safe and be well, everyone.
You too.